Dying Light 2 Stay Human, as the name has already implied, is a post-apocalyptic action game that has been the source of entertainment for gamers worldwide. It's been available on the Xbox One, Series S, Series X, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and Microsoft Windows. Amidst being available on those ones, when is the game coming to PS4 and PS5 then? Does it offer crossplay too? What should we expect on its launch? Let's dig right into this one to know more. What is Dying Light 2 Stay Human all about? Similarly to every apocalyptic game, the sequel to the Dying Light is based on when the virus outbreak overtook the world, making civilization fall back into the Dark Ages. The city, which is now the very last hope for the human settlements, is on the verge of crumbling. The aim is to use your combat skills and IQ to remake the world better. At this point, the ball is in the court of the gamer. Basically, the game is centered on survival. Knowing what this would entail, fans are inquisitive as to why Dying Light 2's first story DLC has been delayed. Are they facing bigger problems or perhaps issues? Developer Techland, responsible for the production, responded that the absolute highest level of polish ought to be achieved, and they really wanted to meet all of the players' expectations, hence its delay to September 2022. Is it a must for Dying Light to be played before Dying Light 2? It's already a known fact that Dying Light 2 is the sequel to the original Dying Light 1. Most of the players are wondering if it is necessarily important to play Dying Light first in order to understand the sequel. However, they both have the same structure and an important aspect of the series, which entails survival gameplay and combat. So without further ado, we implore that you can play both conveniently. So does it mean that Dying Light 2 continues the story of the former, or are they just lingering on the same theme? Techland mentioned the game would feature over 500 hours of content revolving around the main and only story, and it would still be possible to play when the story's over? Would it? Does the party actually stop? The answer to that is yes, you can keep playing Dying Light 2 after completing the missions. Is there an epilogue or a dead end to Dying Light 2, or is it a continuous cycle of the story? Some players who are highly skilled can be able to advance to the dead end, but what's next? Is that the end? It was explained that coming to the end can lead you to its epilogue, but this would lead to uncertainty if you proceeded further. While you might want to continue, some others might not be ready because the post-epilogue changes can disrupt the gamers. It is advisable to be fully ready to welcome the changes that come by. Having established the aim of Dying Light 2, the developers want the sequel to begin with a more powerful player character. Does that mean that they've made it possible, or is it coming from a place of regret? The lead designer from the game has already spoken to an outlet regarding the sequel of the apocalyptic horror game. He specifically said, "One thing is that if we're making Dying Light 3, then I would like to make the main character start with bigger and better starting abilities and skills." The statement can only mean that Part 2 of the game didn't really meet up to their expectations in terms of a powerful character. The lead designer also noted that Dying Light 2 isn't much different from the first game of the series. The replication is much, and thus, it still has a mediocre stance. He wished that more powers, skills, and abilities and basic skill sets were added, and if a third part of the series should come up, they wouldn't fail to add it. So apparently, the team honestly wished they did more in the second of the series. The statement released by the lead designer came up briefly after the Dying Light 2 launched in February. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope for the very best while it launches later this year. Although most fans are anticipating the second of the series game, you most can't help but ask, is it going to be worth it? Is it a total waste of money and time? Generally speaking, the game hasn't presented itself to be bad, and based on popular reviews, it's actually been given a 7 out of 10. If you're willing to overlook the bugs, the glitches, or any technical and performance issues that the game might have, then you're good to go. Lagging in games is something that is inevitable most times, so with this, Dying Light doesn't have any problems. So, is it worth playing? Yes, it is. Techland also assured that they have used thousands of different animations for the parkour, which is going to be very evident to us. They've also spent 2 years after the original launch came in passing out the promised original game reveal video, and we're glad that they did pull it off eventually. So is Dying Light 2 better than the original? And what are the obvious additions made in Dying Light 2 Stay Human? Dying Light of the first series is centered on Kyle Crane, who is sent to a quarantine zone in the middle of a city named Wherein in the Middle East. And as we all know, the game features a lot of zombies and parkour as expected. It also has the ability to condone an asymmetrical multiplayer mode and a 4-player co-op. The parkour and the crafting system, which the players have been able to use effectively well, have helped to improve the navigation of the game so far. So what's the actual difference between the second series and the first? And what happens to the character, Kyle Crane? Following up on the sequel, we are made to know that Kyle is dead, and thereby spreading the virus all over the world. At this point, there is a new protagonist in the game, Aiden Caldwell. If you've played the first of the series before, you would realize that the sequel comes with a lot of new additions. The crazy thing about this is that the new protagonist, Aiden, gets infected by the virus. Whoa! This brings a whole new level of urgency to the game, especially when he turns into a zombie at night. The only cure needed as well is if he's under the sunlight or UV lamps. That's a whole level of addition. The game also improved the player's relationship with factions. We are made to know 2 factions are available, so they can interact with, that is, the survivors and the peacekeepers. The methods were implored as the nature of the current world requires them. A faction that is considered the wild card is the renegades. Those are the terrorists and opposers that don't care, and they would eliminate any person, animal, whatever that gets in their way. They only cause chaos in everything they do. All these are left to the hands of the player, that is, to handle the factions. The way a player handles them can influence how the people act around them accordingly, and it's also possible that they can help the factions clearing out the enemies as well. The action towards a faction is very important as it determines how it ends. It would also determine what the player gets, so it's up to you. However, those are a few major highlights we were able to note in the sequel of the game. The rest are expected and somewhat easy to deduce. It doesn't necessarily require that much drama to it. Impressed about the new additions to the game? Gamers wonder, is crossplay available? And if not, what can be used as a substitute? First of all, we need to establish what cross-platform play, also known as crossplay, means. In the world of gaming, it's an important terminology that describes the ability of players using different video game hardware to play with each other simultaneously. And this means that it can be played online regardless of the platform used. Unfortunately, Dying Light 2 does not have the feature of crossplay, not even in the ones in the same ecosystem. So that means that if your console is different from your partner's console, you can't play the game with them. That's bad luck. We've been rest assured, though, that even though crossplay isn't available now, it would definitely be available onwards, but not on launch. So for the cross-platform players, it's much more advisable to be patient until it's made available. We bet it will be worth it by then. Meanwhile, they've assured co-op with strangers and friends online can be possible. So there's a win-win either way. What a fruitful way to conclude this episode on Dying Light 2 Stay Human review. We bet most of the facts and information we passed across are somewhat new, and we are glad to clear up these misconceptions today. Is it possible that there is going to be a sequel 3 of the game series? Do you feel that Dying Light 2 would exceed expectations worldwide? What are your thoughts on the powerful player thing? When would the cross-play feature be available? And most importantly, would it ever be launched on the PS4 and PS5? I hope you do stay tuned as always to find out more, so thanks for watching.